Welcome to episode number 3 of our Pietenpol wing rib construction. I know I already talked a little bit about bending the wood for the wing ribs, but since I had some of the tube and I didn't show you this previously, I thought I'd just spend just a second showing you a little bit about this. I have some cap strip in here, 8 pieces, enough for 4 ribs to allow us to show you a little bit about that. These have been soaking for about 24 hours and are good and wet. I actually put these in boiling water last night and let them soak so we can show you how we put these on the form. Pretty simple. Just lay them out. And we want to make sure that they are lined up lengthwise so that the bends are all in the same places. And we just simply lay out our blocks. And as I mentioned earlier, as you're clamping these down, we don't want to clamp them too tight, just enough to conform them to the form here, because this wet spruce will indent if you put too much pressure. You'll wind up with a dent the shape of the block. So we just clamp started. Okay, now we just come down, as you can see under here. If you get a camera angle from the side here, a little bit better, you can see that we're just going to put enough pressure to conform the spruce. And we just tighten them down kind of evenly as we go. And make sure that they are, this one has to be pivoted a little bit. Okay, so it's down all the way, making contact with the form. That's all there is to that. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about taking the gusset plates and trimming them off. As you can see, we have some excess material right there. So what we do is we use we elected to use this laminate trimmer. Some people might want to use a router table to do this, but what we have here is a laminate trimmer with a flush cutting bit. You can see the bearing here is the exact diameter as the cutting surface on the cutter. And what we do is we just take this guy and run it along and trim flush the gusset plates. And when we're done, it comes out really nice. So let me show you how we do that. Safety glasses, because it is messy, throws chips everywhere, and it's a little bit loud. Okay, so you can see that goes pretty quick. I might mention that you know, if you don't have access to a laminate trimmer like this, or you don't have a lot of spend a lot of time with hand tools like this, then you might want to consider using a router table to do this because it is a little bit safer, and I think you can do an adequate job with a routing table as well. Same bit though, just use a routing table. I don't think with this, if you don't have much time with hand tools like this, it's probably not your safest bet. I don't think that tool would maim you for life, but it might ruin your day. So, at any rate, now that we have these trimmed off, what we want to try to do is to come back and we just inspect all of our gusset plates, and we want to make sure that we have actually made good contact with the cap strip. So we don't want to see huge gaps right here. We want to make sure that these were adhered properly to the cap strip. So that's what we do. That's how we trim that off. You might notice that this particular rib is very different. Well, I say very different. It is different than this rib. Same shape, but this is actually, the plans call for the two outboard ribs on each wing panel to have, or the last wing panel on each wing to have some additional bracing. And I'm assuming that that is because we want to support the additional structure of the wing bow and to have that tip nice and rigid. But you can see, compared to this rib has a good bit more internal bracing, 6 pieces I think to be exact. And so that's a pretty neat thing there. Now, one of the things that we did after we get our gusset plates completely trimmed out, this happens to be the location for the front spar. So we just made a kind of a miniature version of a spar so that we can test fit this and make sure that we have a proper fit. And as we clean these gusset plates off, invariably there are some epoxy squeeze out in these areas that we have to come back in, clean out, use a combination of a knife and some sandpaper, sanding block, to get this to fit the way that it should. You want this to fit very nicely up against this internal bracing here. You want to have a nice tight fit. These particular wings call for a 1-inch filler block to go at the top here. And this plan calls for the front, for that to happen in the front spar and the rear spar. If you notice in the back though, the fit is a little bit tighter. This particular form that I've made. So we're probably not going to get that strip in there. Now that top deal in there. But I made it that way on purpose, and I think it's going to work fine. So anyway, this rib, once we get it, get all the cap strips cleaned off of it and ready to go, we'll take these over to our sanding table. And just put it right there, and all of these ribs are ready to be finished sanded. And one of the things that we do is we finish sanding, nothing complicated here. I just take a stick with some sticky sanding paper and clean all this up really good. And also I could put a little bit of a beveled edge on the gusset plates that face the lower and upper portions. Because there will be fabric. This will come up against fabric, have some tape over that, and then that'll ride up against fabric. So we don't want any sharp edges right here. We want to make sure that this is flush with the rib and that we have a little bit of bevel on here. It doesn't take much, just to clean it up a little bit. And you can also see the good shot of the staples right here. These are stainless steel staples. These happen to be 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch. And again, this is just for clamping pressure. To hold the gusset plate in place as the epoxy cures. No real structural strength to be gained from the staples, just clamping pressure. And again, we are going to leave these in place as opposed to pulling them out because they're stainless steel. They'll never rust or corrode, and additionally the entire box of staples only weighs about a pound, and we're only going to be using about half or less of the box of staples. So weight penalty is very negligible. So anyway, that will conclude today's episode of our wing rib construction. So thanks a lot, and happy building.